Good evening from New York. This is Wednesday, September 28th, 405 days until the 2012 presidential election. The brutal pepper spray attack by New York Deputy Inspector Anthony Bologna on 4 penned-in protesters from the Occupy Wall Street movement on Saturday proves tonight to have been only one such assault by Inspector Bologna on protesters there. NYPD Commissioner Raymond Kelly finally says his department will investigate, while the Occupy movement may be coming to a city near you. Our fifth story on the countdown: whatever happens to Mr. Bologna, his seemingly unprovoked attack or attacks may one day be seen as having played a crucial role in turning a protest against Wall Street greed and corruption, a kind of amorphous thing, into a national movement. Already, in news breaking at this hour, local Operation New York 1 reports that the protesters now hope to march near New York Police headquarters on Friday. The second incident coming to light and reminiscent of the first, blasting his pepper spray at demonstrators or bystanders already moving down the street. Difficult to know how he expected to clear the sidewalk by forcing people to drop to their knees while clutching their eyes in pain. That assault appears to have followed the one you've already seen, this one, Bologna's unprovoked attack Saturday on 4 women protesters who had already been penned by police behind that plastic net. Bologna's spray also hit at least one of his men in blue, who swore colorfully. Before the second video came out today, Commissioner Kelly told a media briefing that the NYPD Internal Affairs Unit will, quote, look into Bologna's use of the caustic chemical, as will the Civilian Complaint Review Board. Kelly also said that while he didn't know what precipitated the incident, he found the videos inadequate.
What we don't show is the tumultuous conduct that happened before that. It was, certainly a disorderly situation.
However tumultuous they were, it could not have been more so than was a searing dollop of pepper spray to the eye. Occupy Wall Street did not seem impressed with Kelly's decision. Spokesman Patrick Bruner saying it seems like Kelly is further into the cover-up. If anyone else had done that, it would have been a lot more than getting fired from their day job. Deputy Inspector Bologna has not been fired from anything, at least not yet, but Occupy Wall Street does seem to be firing up plans for more protests around the country. Occupy Together, a website that calls itself a hub for events in solidarity with Occupation Wall Street, shows similar protests are planned in cities such as Detroit, Chicago, Phoenix, Seattle, KC, Philadelphia, and Denver. And while many are in the planning stage, Occupy protests are scheduled already for September 29th. That would be tomorrow in San Francisco and Lexington, Kentucky as well, October 1st in Washington, and Sacramento on October 6th in Las Vegas, Houston, Dallas, and Tampa. About 70 demonstrators reportedly took part in a march in Los Angeles today, and around 200 turned out last night in the center of Boston Common to plan an Occupy protest in that city. Marissa Egerstrom and Matthew Krautz are the organizers.
We're trying to get the corrupt banks out of government, and we've all got a million causes here that we all believe in and all want to see achieved. But on a deeper level, this is about our right as Americans, and moreover, our right as humans to live lives of purpose and meaning.
I am no way a leader. I'm simply a guy who said, enough, it's time to change.
Arun Venugopal, reporter for WNYC, the New York Public Radio Station, has been covering this story and has joined me here at the control desk with the latest. Thanks for coming in.
Sure, Keith.
Do you know anything about this supposed protest on Friday at NYPD headquarters?
Well, they've been trying to align with people in more traditional movements, unions and whatnot, and so that networking has been happening for a few days now. This is sort of the first event where they're kind of holding hands together and saying that they're all in this fight together.
You were down there at the protest today. What did you see? What has this evolved into at this point?
Well, it's an interesting scene. This has been going on for about a week and a half now, nearly 2 weeks. What you see is right there amidst all these skyscrapers, this whole plaza has been essentially occupied, taken over by hundreds of young people, mostly, coming from all over the country. You see sleeping bags and beds. They might be lounging on them, sleeping because they've been up late last night. They might be playing music, guitars, and whatnot. They're also holding discussions. They're having debates about what it is exactly that they're trying to achieve.
To that point in a little bit, but the Anthony Bologna incident, or now we have videotape suggesting incidents. The spokesman was not the Occupy Wall Street spokesman was not particularly impressed, as I mentioned, with the Kelly comment or the promise of looking into it. I don't know if that's a formal investigation or not. Are protesters satisfied with the police internal reaction now that it has at least advanced to the soundbite stage from the police commissioner?
Well, I'm hearing some mixed things. Some of them say, well, would this have ever happened had it not been for the video we ourselves were taking of that incident that went viral many times over around the world? At the same time, I think there is some discomfort with having outed this particular gentleman in the NYPD, whether it seems a little vindictive. He does have a history, it seems, from the RNC and other events, but some people say they just want to kind of move on and not politicize this overly. There's also been relatively decent interactions with them in other situations,
which they've all expressed many times, and we've tried to emphasize here. Is there, from what you could tell talking to the people involved in this, is there a fundamental disconnect over let's do whatever we need to do to get this publicized, to get our point of view out, to let people know that we're here, and some sort of belief that organically this can develop of its own essentially free will, that because it's a good cause, people will cover it, people will pay attention to it? Is that the split?
I mean, I think that there is right now this sort of a euphoria to some extent amongst members of this movement because they see it's growing. It is growing organically. There are people who complain all the time about not getting enough media coverage, but they, at the same time, they are very interested in getting the public support, getting their story across. What it is exactly they're aiming for, that's a whole nother matter.
Right. And saying that they're not sure of that, and we were discussing with one of the leaders the other night, excuse me, Kelly Heresy, that was part of an organic process, and you can understand that, but these are soundbite days, particularly in terms of politics and American change. Is that refusal to sort of buy into the standard media exploitation or exploitation of the media, is that harming what they want to get out, do you think?
There is definitely a lot of internal pressure that they're feeling to articulate their list of demands or what have you. At the same time, some people say, listen, we've got to have this process. This is all about process. This is about having everybody kind of buy into this movement, growing it, sort of a horizontal structure here. We don't want to have one or two people, this small clique of demonstrators who tells the rest of the world what it is we want. We want everybody to sort of have their voice. These general assemblies, as they call it, these meetings they have out in the open, completely transparent is what they're trying to achieve, project to the world. They're trying to get people to discuss this to such an extent that there's a lot of, I guess, solidarity in the final choices they make.
Arun Venugopal, I kept doing that, my apologies again, of WNYC. Thanks for coming on, and we appreciate your time and coming in as well.
Thanks, Keith.
Occupy Wall Street may be gaining strength, but it's not without its critics on the left. Many have applauded the movement's support for, quote, the 99% on the lower rungs of the economic ladder who will no longer tolerate the greed and corruption of the 1% on top. But the group has indeed yet to articulate any specific demands. And while it may be performing a crucial role in helping to educate the uninformed about how they have been victimized by Wall Street and the too-big-to-fail banks, the deliberate almost lack of organization, the self-styled leaderless resistance movement, and its refusal to articulate demands could both hamper its growth and slow its being taken as seriously as it would like to be. Matt Taibbi, the Rolling Stone contributing editor and Countdown contributor, joins me now here at Control. Good to see you, sir.
Good evening, Keith.
All right, so you decided you were writing about this and hadn't seen it, didn't know what it was, and you literally just hopped on a train from Boston to go see it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I decided to check it out this afternoon.
What'd you see?
Well, I think there's about 1,000 people that I counted down there today, and the sign that I thought most accurately represented the whole thing. I can't really say the actual words on air, but there was a sign that said "bleep is bleeped up," and I think that kind of generally sums up what it is. It's a generalized protest. People are angry about something, and they kind of generally understand that Wall Street is somehow behind the problems, but they don't know exactly why.
And many of those who are saying and pushing to keep this non-specific have said, look, Tahrir Square, Cairo, we brought down the Mubarak government. By the time that really had its impact, they were very specific about what they wanted. They wanted freedom for a nation that was obviously being wildly suppressed, and violence against those protesters. What is seldom known, and to the credit of this network, was begun to be reported on here on Vanguard in 2006, was that those Tahrir Square demonstrations started with 50, 60 people just saying, we want things to be better. So is there in fact some reason for them to believe that this is the root of something? Has the last week and a half suggested that they actually grew something there in that time?
You know what? I think so. I mean, I thought about this a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, it's not 100,000 extremely desperate people chewing through brick walls with their teeth. It's 1,000 college students having a sleep-in right now. But the reality is that there's a lot of real anger out there, and the movement is growing organically. I think just because people know that there's something to protest now, and they're coming out, and all these people are distressed, and there is enough real distress and desperation out there this could transform into a real movement where there's enough really angry people to scare people in power.
And of all people, you would know that they didn't just pick something at random, like saying we don't like cobblestone streets downtown. Right. That's the cause of every American problem. There is so much wrong with Wall Street, and as you wrote, any movement against Wall Street corruption will have to involve some very elaborate organization.
Right.
Is this something that could conceivably grow into that, or merely an inspiration for something else that might grow into that?
Well, I think what this could do is that it could provide the political support for those activists who are trying to change very specific things about how Wall Street operates. Obviously, this is a crowd that doesn't know a whole lot about how, for instance, the derivatives market works. But there's enough anger out there that people who are trying to reform the derivatives market could point and say, look, there are protests out there. We need to do something because the public won't take it anymore.
What about the move towards other, we cited the one in Los Angeles today, 70 was the low end of one estimate, a couple of hundred was another, all the ones on slate for tomorrow, the rest of this week, big towns, small towns. Are they interconnected, or are they being inspired by each other?
Well, I think clearly this one seems a little different to me because it's supposedly specifically directed towards Wall Street, and it's at Wall Street, and so thematically it should be different. But I think, you know, it has a lot in common with the Tea Party movement that popped up a couple of years ago, which is, you know, somebody gave people an excuse to come out in the streets and organize and show their anger, and all of a sudden there were millions of people. I think that could really happen here because there is enough discomfort out there that, you know, those numbers will be there.
All right. Where are they relative to media coverage? I don't want to pat everybody on the back here too much, but we were essentially the first people to do this on national television at any length in the context of a news program, and it seems to have been some pickup. Well, what are people covering, and you know, is the message being delivered by the media? Is it being thwarted by the media? Do you have any perception of that?
You know, obviously I covered a lot of Tea Party events in the early going, and you know, it seems like every time there was a decent-sized event, there were always live trucks everywhere. And,
a loud cough.
Exactly. And this one, you know, there are a few reporters. There's a setup there for the media, but it's not anywhere near the numbers you saw on the other side.
You made the reference, I've done it before, you're the expert on it, not me. If those were Tea Party protesters in Wall Street for the last week and a half complaining about welfare, complaining about stimulus packages, demanding the ouster of Ben Bernanke, what kind of coverage would that get, do you think?
I think it would get a lot of coverage, but interestingly, there are some Tea Partiers there. I mean, there are Ron Paul supporters there in some numbers, and you know, they're being ignored too. So I think that's worth pointing out.
Maybe there just aren't enough funny hats.
Right.
So we're going to be having a telethon here on Current to raise money for funny hats for Occupy Wall Street, to try to just sell the media presence a little bit. The Rolling Stone contributing editor and Countdown contributor Matt Taibbi with the perspective on Occupy Wall Street. Great, thanks for it, Matt.
Thank you.
Good to see you as always.